Hello everyone and welcome back to another Guild Wars 2 build video. Today I am bringing you a little bit of support, Tempest, and I just wanted to be on my little bunny Springer because, you know, why not? Oh, his ears just perked up. Oh my god, he's smelling the air. He's so adorable. Okay, anywho, let's jump off and let's start with the build. Of course, I'm going to go over my gear first, then the specialization choices, and then my weapons and utilities and overall playstyle, and then move into some gameplay. So first up, let's go over my gear. For my trinkets and my backpacks, and overall, my two stat combinations that I am focusing on are Harrier stats and Magi's. So I have an assortment of Harriers. This is a Cleric's, which I'm hoping to get potentially a Magi's. Harriers, some more Harriers, and then this is a Shaman's one because I just had it. I'm also looking to replace this at some point as well. And I also have to replace my Scepter because it's a Berserker, but I want to make it a Harriers. Other than that, some Magi's and some Harriers as well. The rune I'm going for is Superior Rune of Water for increased boon duration and also just healing. Also, I'd like to mention for the 6th perk, when it says remove a condition from you and nearby allies after using a healing skill, in some PvE scenarios, it's actually useful. ArenaNet has been more actively putting in boss fights where the boss themselves will apply conditions. So sometimes it sees use, sometimes it doesn't. It's just useful to have. So currently I'm sitting at 80% boon duration. I am looking to improve this overall, but I'd say this is a pretty decent level of boon duration for now. And of course, a decent level of healing power and moderate power if there's nothing else to do, and I'm just gonna wail on a boss. Moving over to my build, where I'm going to be discussing my specializations, I'm taking Water, Arcane, and Tempest. For Water, I'm taking Piercing Shards, Aquamancer's Training, and Soothing Power. I'd also like to mention that I sometimes run with Powerful Aura if I'm actively pumping out multiple auras, and I'm going for that play style. One reason why I choose Soothing Power is because of the raw power with Soothing Mist. Having a passive healing over time that does 3,000, somewhat close to 4,000 healing over 10 seconds, I find so fantastic and really easy. But if you're looking for a more active playstyle, definitely go with Powerful Aura. If I were to go with Powerful Aura, I can't say that word. I would run Soothing Ice. This is gain regeneration and Frost Aura when critically hit. I'm mostly taking this for the Frost Aura, which would be spread out with Powerful Aura, but once again, regen is nice. Piercing Shards is just good for vulnerability, increased damage. And Aquamancer's Training for more damage, and weapon skills have a reduced recharge when you are attuned to water. Of course, Healing Ripple is a really nice trait just to keep in mind, because when you swap to water, you blast out healing. So just keep in mind, just some minor traits. Sometimes they'll be active, sometimes they'll be more important. Most of the times they're kind of forgettable, but in case of water, you know, Healing Ripple is nice. Moving over to Arcane. Now, Arcane is always a little bit of a weird trait line. I never know whether to go with a second attunement specialization or go with Arcane. However, with this build, I'm sticking with Arcane. First one I'm taking is Arcane Precision. Your critical strikes have a chance to inflict a condition based on your attunement. This is mostly just for some extra damage in terms of fire and earth. I'm taking water mostly because if I'm in a solo scenario, I need to add some vulnerability and do some more damage. If I'm not going to take Arcane Precision, I would definitely say Renewing Stamina is nice, just for increased dodging, or Arcane Abatement, just for increased healing potential. Self-healing potential, I might add. Next up, I'm taking Arcane Resurrection. This is one of the best traits for support, especially in a raiding scenario. If someone goes down, you go over there, press F, and you start reviving them. And you and the ally revived gain an aura based on your attunement, which further plays into Tempest. I'll get into that in a minute. Elemental Contingency is cool if you're going for extra boons, but overall, Arcane Resurrection beats out the rest of the traits on this line. Next up, Bountiful Power. Deal increased damage for each boon on you. Now, this build isn't going for DPS. However, in a raiding scenario, and in most PvE scenarios, the faster you can kill something, the less healing you're going to have to do, and the less danger you're going to be in. If you don't want to take Bountiful Power, I would definitely suggest Arvasive Arcana and dodge rolling in Cleansing Wave, or dodge rolling in water for Cleansing Wave, because it deals a decent amount of healing. I'd also like to touch on this minor trait, Elemental Enchantment, which increases concentration by 180. Overall, this is really useful for your overall boon duration, and which is one reason why I'm taking Arcane. Also, the reduced recharge for your attunements comes in handy. Finally, for Tempest, I'm taking Unstable Conduit to gain an aura when I overload. Now, since I'm taking this, this would also be a great trait to pair with Powerful Aura. So just keep that in mind if you'd like to take Powerful Aura. Latent Stamina always seems like a very interesting trait, but I very rarely take it. I would maybe see this being more useful in a PvP scenario, but I don't know. It always feels weird to me. I feel like a lot of traits in Tempest feel very strange. Next up, I'm taking Invigorating Torrents, or as you also grant Regeneration and Vigor. Vigor being nice for endurance regeneration, and regeneration just being great for healing over time. Tempestuous Aria also is a trait that I've sometimes looked at and been interesting. I'm like, oh, could I just do a might generating build? And yes, you can. So if I wanted to focus on might stacking, I would take Tempestuous Aria. And this would allow my shouts to grant allies 2 stacks of might. And I'm actually going to test this out once I go over all my skills. Finally, for my Grandmaster, I'm taking Elemental Bastion, which heals allies when you grant an aura to them. You also grant Frost Aura to nearby allies when struck while below the health threshold. This is great just for raw healing and making sure everyone is up and running and able to fight. Once again, this works well with Powerful Aura. I always think that the Frost Aura is a little weird when paired with Soothing Ice. But then again, it's just another Frost Aura, and Frost Auras are really strong. I will say this, and I know I'm not the only person to say this, but I think the healing aspect of this trait should just be in the Powerful Aura. Because Powerful Aura kind of seems meh. Yes, auras have their own passive effects to them, but the healing is just, it feels like it should be in here. Also, it'd be very interesting if this trait was buffed in the future to affect 10 targets instead of 5 targets. That's just a passing thought I had. Back to Tempest. That is Elemental Bastion. I also have been thinking of Imbued Melodies for the 300 concentration, and I believe this takes me to 100% boon duration. So if you want to go for that 100, go for Imbued Melodies. The Sand Squall is nice for Magnetic Aura and further protection. If I were to take Imbued Melodies, I would also take Powerful Aura to pump out Magnetic Aura to everyone. I mean, this already shares it out to 5 targets, so doesn't really matter. I'm wondering if this will double up to 5 targets, to 10 targets. For 5 for Powerful Aura, and then a separate 5 for Sand Squall. Maybe, maybe not. So those are my specialization choices. I'm going to quickly move this over to the side, just ever so slightly, and go over my weapons and utilities. For this build, I primarily focus on 3 of the attunements: fire, water, and earth. I'm going to first start in fire, because this is where I... Hello, passing branded Springer. Fire is where I see potential in might stacking and might sharing for raid encounters. Mostly for Overload Fire, Wildfire, Dragon's Tooth, and Phoenix, in conjunction with Heat Sink. Dragon's Tooth and Phoenix are both blast finishers, and when used with Overload Fire, it pulses might. And also, when used with Wildfire, it will pulse might. So let's just demonstrate this real quick. Let me drop a Dragon's Tooth and let me overload and fire. Area might. Let me pop a Phoenix. And with Tempestuous Aria, if I pop both of my shouts, or both my utilities and then further ones, and then use Heat Sink, I gain 25 stacks of might. Furthermore, Heat Sink was buffed to affect 10 targets. So you could potentially, I messed up my rotation, I should have used Dragon's Tooth there first. You could potentially camp in fire and stack a bunch of might with a proper amount of concentration. It's possible. Now, if I take Imbued Melodies, it will further increase my boon duration. So instead of 18 seconds of might for my shouts, it's now 20 seconds, which definitely helps. Let me first cast my Dragon's Tooth, overload and fire, some area might, let me pop a Phoenix, and then Heat Sink. And you copy this to a bunch of allies. I would also like it if Heat Sink applied just like 2 seconds of Fury, because it copies Fury and Might, but it doesn't grant Fury. I don't know, a thought. So that is one playstyle that I sometimes dip into with fire. And I would definitely say Tempestuous Aria and Imbued Melodies, if you need extra concentration, work well with might stacking. Regardless, might stacking is possible without the 2 traits. I'm just saying that those 2 traits definitely help. And then extra Heat Sink, which is nice. I could do more to get to 25, but there you go. Next up with water. Water is the attunement where you just focus on raw healing. The auto attack, I always feel like just needs a buff. It's kind of boring. I wish this was like some sort of auto attack. Shatterstone for extra vulnerability. Water Trident is very powerful, guys. Don't underestimate Water Trident. Right now, it does a flat 3,000 healing. However, with my runes... Whoops, I was already on my hero panel. I forgot to go over my sigils. I'm using Sigil Transference and Concentration. With Sigil Transference, my healing is increased by a flat 10% for outgoing. So this does like about 3,400 healing, which is really strong. Next up with Warhorn, I have Tidal Surge, which is great for CC damage and also a flat heal. It was buffed to activate faster, which is nice. And finally, Water Globe, which is a traveling water field. It has decent heals, has 4 pulses of a heal, and is a traveling water field. So if you want to blast in it, go right ahead. Next up, I have Overload Water, which is a very powerful heal. It does 600 healing ticks, and then we'll do a final 4,000 heal. This was updated to affect 10 targets, which is fantastic. Number of allied target. I believe this does include the healing. If not the healing, I know it does include the regen and the vigor. And it was also buffed to apply vigor. Next up with Earth, this is the final attunement I look at mostly. Typically, Rock Barrier is nice just to gain extra toughness. The auto attack is just simple for extra condition damage and damage. Dust Devil is so boring and is such a bland skill. I honestly think Dust Storm, the Warhorn 5, should replace 3, and then the 5th skill be updated to something. I have ideas, and I might make a video on changing some specs, like my own balance patch. Regardless, for Warhorn 4 Sand Squall, it applies protection and a magnetic aura to 5 targets around you, so it's good for protection upkeep. And then Dust Storm for extra blinds and extra CC. The 2 abilities for extra support in Earth would be Sand Squall, as I just said, protection and magnetic aura, and also with Overload Earth. This will leave a little area which applies protection to allies, and overall Earth is a great specialization if you want to pump out protection to allies. I think I've said protection way too many times. Going over my utilities, I'm taking Wash the Pain Away for just great healing. It affects 5 targets, does a lot. Flash Freeze to grant allies a Frost Aura to reduce damage by 10%. I'm taking Feel the Burn for a Fire Shield, which will burn enemies if the enemy hits the target if they have a Fire Shield. I'd also like to point out the inconsistencies. Everything is called Frost Aura, Magnetic Aura, Shocking Aura, but then with like, it's not Fire Aura, it's called Fire Shield, which I guess is just a minutia semantics little bug of mine. Finally, Signet of Water. This skill is so great. It was changed a while ago to no longer have a boring active skill. It has a very potent active skill now. It heals allies, does some damage, and will also revive allies by 5% if they're down, which is just fantastic. I use this quite often. It only has a 20-second cooldown. It's great. Finally, Rebound. Rebound is a very interesting skill to use. Definitely great in a raiding scenario. This will save your allies from taking lethal damage, and instead of taking a lethal hit, they will instead be healed for 4,000. If they are not healed, they will instead be granted a aura based on the attunement you're currently in. So if I use this and I don't take any damage, by the time the skill ends, I'll gain a Frost Aura. That's basically it. It is a little hard to time it properly in raids sometimes, because you might save 1 or 2 people, or you might want to save this skill for a large mechanic that will do a lot of damage to multiple people. This skill only affects 5 targets, which feels rough. I've always wondered if they increased this to 10 targets, how that would fare in a raiding scenario. I believe the nature spirit for Ranger, the elite spirit, does resurrect 10 allies. But I do think Rebound should affect 10 allies because it involves a little bit more play and a little bit more active timing. This only lasts 5 seconds, but the Druid's elite spirit lasts quite long and can be activated when appropriately needed. It's fairly easy. So if I were to buff Rebound, I would increase its healing a little bit. I think its base healing is 2,836. I would just buff that to like 3,500, and then additionally let it affect 10 targets. that was just me rambling about my build. So, everyone, I think we're going to go over to some gameplay. I have a little bit of raid gameplay, which is really interesting. So I'll see you guys over there. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the gameplay portion. Today, I'm going to bring you the Largos twins. Right off the bat, you might notice that I start off with Earth. Typically with a fight, I want to start off with Earth to get my protection and my overload going. Right there, someone went down very briefly, so just tapped F and my geyser started going off. I do notice someone down, and I don't really realize that it's an illusion. That's mostly a bug. We started rezzing an illusion, which shouldn't happen. Overall, trying to keep people up and running and make sure they're healthy. Popping Rebound every so often because I don't know when he's going to start sliding and dealing a lot of damage, and or I'm just going to go for a aura. One thing I noticed with healing in raids, separate from other games, is that the damage comes out very quickly and you don't have a lot of time to react. So my playstyles typically heal, 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 and don't stop healing. However, with Elementalist, you have to be careful because sometimes you run out of heals. Moving over to Knut, I call her Knut because that's her name. This is a 5-player situation where the group splits. So I wanted to incorporate some gameplay where it's just 5 of us. Here, my role as a might stacker would have probably been more helpful. However, I was in the mode to heal because it does do a lot of damage, especially with these water tornadoes, which have a wonderful effect. So I'm geysering, making sure they're up. I pop my heat sink knowing that I don't have a lot of might. However, I wanted to share as much as I can. Here I would definitely say in this fight, Tempestuous Aria would help a lot. Overall, trying to keep my heals up and using overload water when I can, and making sure I deal a lot of healing. And overall, thank you everyone for watching. This is going to be the end of this video. Like the video if you liked it, comment below on your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! Down below, I have links to all things Guild Wars 2 for free-to-play players and expansion players alike. So if you or a loved one are interested in playing Guild Wars 2, check the links down below and begin your adventure in Tyria today. See you in game!